If someone said to me, you can't impose your Christian views on others, my response would be, is that your view? Hi, and welcome to Faith in Front. You've probably heard that statement before, probably in a political conversation. Christians, you shouldn't impose your views on others. And that's interesting. So what does it mean to impose? To impose means to force something to be accepted by someone else. Now, what I find interesting about that statement is that if I'm talking about a belief or a conviction of mine, it can't be forced for you to accept it. You may not like it, but I can't force you to accept it. And I think people conflate this situation of in the political realm where if I have a conviction and it is put into policy, and they'll say, well, you're imposing your convictions on me. But what I find interesting is that the person who's constantly saying it's wrong for you Christians to impose your views on others, that is a view. That statement in and of itself, Christians should not impose their views on others. That is a view that they have. But for some reason, they give themselves a pass. That's why I said early, well, my response would be, is that your view? Because I know that it is. And what you're doing is you're trying to impose that view. What view? Christians should not impose their views on others. You're trying to impose that view on me. But if it's wrong to impose views, see, it's really a silly statement because everyone speaks from their view, from their vantage, from their conviction that could be different than someone else's. You may have a different view on something than I do. And so if it's wrong to impose views, then we would all really just have to stop talking. Because most people speak from the place of their views. But you'll look at the Christian and say, well, it's wrong for you to impose your views on others. And it normally comes up in the political realm. But I still disagree with that because there are policies in place, because it's normally when you're talking about policies, there are policies in place that basically confirm that murder is wrong. That's interesting because that's one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not murder. But no one's saying, hey, that's a Christian view that shouldn't be imposed on people. Why? Because you agree with it. There are also policies in place that confirm that, yes, stealing is wrong. And there should be consequences for it. But no one's saying, you shouldn't impose your Christian views on others. That's a Christian view. But you don't have a problem with that because that's what you agree with. So you really should change the statement and say, you shouldn't impose Christian views on others that I don't agree with. Because there are a lot of Christian views that are in policies that people do agree with. But it's just a way of somewhat, when you think about it, a lot of these statements today, these little catchphrases or whatever you want to call them, they're really meant to just say, shut up and don't talk about this because I don't like it. I mean, if you just strip away everything from it, that's what it really boils down to. Don't talk about that. You need to keep silent. You're trying to impose your views. Everyone is imposing views. Everyone is imposing views, and we forget that opposing views will jockey for a position. If you believe that it is a good thing for a woman to unalive her child before it's born in the womb, you're gonna get a politician. You're gonna have them put some policies in place that promote that. And if your politician wins, and those policies go into effect, you are now imposing your conviction on people who have a different conviction, and you have no problem doing it. So why should I, as a Christian, be silent when you have no problem putting policies in place that you know will be imposed upon me because I have the opposite view, right? You right? That's the way opposing views work. So this is a short one. I just pray that encourages you and to not be duped by the statement that Christians shouldn't impose their views on others because everyone's view is being imposed. That's just life. That's how it works. And if your person wins, that's going to be imposed upon me. If my person wins, yes, it will be somewhat imposed upon you. But I think that's the best way we handle opposing views is with the political system that we have. Because if not, I think it would just be chaos. If we come up with some other way, I think any other way it would just be, well, it could be more of a forced situation versus this political situation that has to play out. Because yes, throughout my life, there's been administrations that were advancing things that go totally against my biblical worldview. And it was somewhat being imposed upon me because it was the law, right? But then you'll turn around and say, well, I don't want your Christian convictions put in the law. Why? Because you don't want them imposed upon you. Everyone has a view. Opposing views will jockey for a position. That's the way it works. And I'm thankful that we live in a country where we have a political system to where it's important to vote so that your conviction can be advanced, even if it's different than my view. I still think that's the best way to handle it, even though if your person wins, no, I don't like the fact that now your view is being imposed upon me, but I think that's still the best way to do it. So don't be duped by the statement Christians shouldn't impose their views on others, because everyone has a view. And if it's different than someone else's, it's going to be imposing. That's just the way that works. Right? So, as usual, keep your faith in front.